If you've been studying English for a while, I'm sure you remember learning basic comparatives and superlatives and seeing expressions like bigger than, more expensive, the best, the worst, etc. in your course books. But native speakers, we don't stop there. At a more advanced level, if we want to say something is better, we might say significantly better, or far more interesting, or a great deal better, or even by far the best. These words are called modifiers because they change the strength of the comparison. They modify the comparison, they change it. And in this episode, you'll learn some common advanced modifiers and how to use them in English. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome to the podcast, especially if you're a new listener. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing fine. As you know, this is our second episode of the day that we've recorded. The coffee that we had after the first has given me that extra little perk. I feel even friskier than before.
The coffee and the biscuits always help, don't they, Reza? First this week we have a voice message from Valentina from Romania who speaks about, well, let's listen to...
Let's hit it.
Let's hit it. Let's listen to Valentina.
Hello, Reza and Craig. My name is Valentina and I'm from Romania. I have just discovered your podcast and I love it. You're doing a great job. I've been binge listening to it for about 2 weeks. And I have come across a phrase, go quicker instead of go more quickly. So when we compare adverbs, which one is more appropriate in formal and informal context? Which one of these, I mean? I would also be interested in learning more about advanced modifiers for comparative and superlatives, such as significantly or a great deal, or by far, or nowhere near. What do you think? Could you do a podcast about these as well? Thank you.
Well, we think that is a wonderful idea, Valentina. Thank you very much for your message and for giving us an idea for this week's podcasts. Always a pleasure to welcome new listeners, isn't it, Reza?
It is. And from when we have more countries, the better it is. It's great to have someone from Romania. A beautiful country, by the way, Valentina, which I visited. I'd be curious to know which part of Romania you're from. I visited it and I thought it was a beautiful country. One of the best holidays I've ever had.
Well, binge listening was a nice expression. If you binge something, then you have a lot of it in one go without pausing, without stopping. You can binge watch a TV series, for example, which means you watch continuously episode after episode. And in a similar way, Valentina has been binge listening the podcasts.
About your question, Valentina, about go quicker or go more quickly? Well, go quicker is definitely more informal, definitely more conversational. Would you agree with that, Craig?
Yeah, so quicker really it's a comparative adjective, but it can act as an adverb when you want to speak more informally. So when you say go quicker, then you're really using it as an adverb, aren't you?
Yeah, technically speaking, I mean, go more quickly is a bit more formal and it would be more common in written English. So if you're not sure, write quickly. You know, if it's a word describing a verb, and here the verb is go more quickly. Forget about the word more if that confuses you. Just think go quickly. Yeah, more is just to make it comparative. So to make an adverb quickly, comparative, you add more. Usually, there are a few exceptions, but usually. So that's technically what you should do. But very often people don't. However, there is kind of an exception where the adjective is accepted as correct English, and that is when you're using it more to describe the capacity. For example, let's compare a couple of sentences. This car goes quicker than the other car, or the other one. So I'm talking about the capacity of the car. Maybe the car isn't even driving right now. I'm not talking about an action happening right now at the moment. I'm just talking about its capacity. So when I say the car goes quicker, it has the capacity to go more quickly. In that case, we tend to use the comparative adjective, actually. I could say that this car goes more quickly than the other one, but in fact, it's more common to say this car goes quicker than the other one if you're talking about the capacity of something. Compare it to this sentence. This car is going, so that's an action happening now, this car is going more quickly than the other one. So there I'm using the comparative adverb, more quickly, and that's because it's simply describing the action of going. Yeah, I'm not talking about capacity. So whenever we use a comparative adjective, go quicker, with a verb, go, we tend to be talking about capacity rather than a specific action or situation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as Reza said, it's more common in informal and conversational English to say go quicker. For example, my mum used to say to me, can't you go any quicker? Walking along the road. A similar example would be to drive safe and drive safely. Very often you might say to someone, okay, you're going now, take care, drive safe, instead of drive safely.
Yeah, and another classic one, keep safe. Keep
Yep.
safe. I mean, technically speaking, it should be keep safely, but nobody ever says that. The expression that people always say is keep safe.
That's right. So thank you very much for your question, Valentina. We have actually spoken about comparative adjectives before and superlative adjectives, respectively, in episodes 453 and 454. So we did one after the other. For comparative adjectives, simply go to inglespodcast.com/453, and for superlative adjectives, the same but episode 454. So Reza, let's look at some advanced modifiers because we haven't spoken about these more advanced expressions. We can use significantly, can't we? That's quite common when you're talking about statistics, business, maybe in academic writing. I'm sure in your students' essays, your academic students' essays, you get significantly quite a lot. It has increased significantly, for example.
Yes, for example, sales increased significantly more than expected. Significantly more just means much more.
A lot more, yeah.
A lot more, much more, lots more, significantly more. But if I were writing an academic essay, I would definitely use the word significantly more than the word much. Significantly more, or significantly higher, significantly lower. I could say much higher, much lower, but just using that word significantly adds a certain air of like you know what you're talking about because you're using the standard academic collocations. It just makes you sound like you're a person who knows what they're saying.
Yeah, and as a general rule of thumb, that means as a general rule to think about, if the word is longer and has more syllables, it's probably more formal and will get you better marks in the exam. So instead of much, significantly, instead of a lot, extremely, for example, the longer words tend to be more sophisticated and more formal.
Yeah, I mean, for example, this year we're in 2026, although I don't know when you're listening to this, but we're recording it in 2026. I could say due to global warming, many countries are much hotter this year. But it doesn't sound very technical, it doesn't sound very academic. If I wanted it to sound academic, scientific, I would say something like, due to global warming, many countries experienced significantly higher temperatures this year. And that sounds much more scientific, much more academic and formal.
Another advanced modifier you could use, and I quite like this one, a great deal. A great deal, which means by a large amount. And you can use a great deal as a synonym of a lot. For example, she's a great deal happier. You can say she's a lot happier now, but she's a great deal happier just sounds a bit better. It means she's much happier. She's a great deal happier now that she's passed the exam, for example. Or the cost of living is a great deal higher now than it was 10 years ago.
Unfortunately, as we all know.
As we have experienced,
Yeah.
significantly higher.
Well, certainly in Spain, I'd be curious to know about other countries, beg your pardon. Valentina, tell us about Romania, and other listeners, tell us about prices in your country. Are they just, a little higher, or are they a great deal higher than they were 10 years ago? In the case of Spain, I would say a great deal higher.
So you could say that it's by far more expensive to do the shopping than it used to be. By far is another one. Tell us about by far, Eza.
So by far means much more, or it can also mean much better. For example, that's by far the funniest episode of this series. By far. It's much better than all the others. Not just a bit better, but a lot better. It's by far the funniest. Or it was by far the biggest mistake of his entire life. He's made a lot of mistakes in his life, but this one really stands out. It's something else. It was by far the biggest.
Buying shares in FIFA was by far the biggest mistake of his entire life. Our next expression, our next modifier is nowhere near. Again, 3 words, nowhere near, which means not even close. We've just had some lovely pistachio biscuits, wafer biscuits, and I could say that those biscuits are nowhere near as expensive as the other biscuits, for example, which means that they're much less expensive than. Those biscuits are nowhere near as expensive.
Some of you might listen to another podcast about learning English. Doesn't matter what it is, we can say that the other podcast is nowhere near as good as ours.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. You can't even compare us. What, are you serious?
Not even close.
Not even close. It's nowhere near as good as ours.
Now, if you want to modify and say that something is equally as good or as expensive or as interesting, you could use the expression just as. For example, the lunch you made, Reza, was just as tasty as the breakfast. Just as tasty, the same, equally.
And a word of warning for novice drinkers. A novice is you're new to something. Whiskey is usually just as strong as vodka or gin. So don't think, whiskey, that's a traditional drink, old-fashioned. It's not going to be as strong as gin or vodka, is it? It's just as strong. They're all the same. They're all about 40% alcohol is what they tend to be. So whiskey is usually just as strong as vodka or gin. They're equally strong.
That's right. Now, the more attentive listener, the listeners to this podcast who are really on the ball and are focusing on what we're saying, you may have noticed that most of these comparative modifiers, they come immediately before the comparative. For example, the new flat is a great deal bigger. Okay, so bigger the comparative, a great deal bigger, it comes before. And similarly, house prices are significantly higher. Significantly modifier, higher comparative.
So we spoke about how certain modifiers tend to be a little bit more formal or academic or serious, like significantly, but there are some other advanced modifiers, and not all of them are necessarily more formal, but one in particular is very common, and that's the word way. Now, you know the word way already, but you know it like, what's the way to the train station? Oh, go straight and turn to your left and second on the right. That's the way. Okay, we're not talking about that use of way here. We're using way as an adverb modifier. So this is more common in informal spoken English to say something like this. Speaking about the World Cup, FIFA. Spain played way better than Argentina. Sorry to our Argentinian listeners who are listening, but you know it's true. Come on, you know it's true. Admit it. Spain played way better. Not a little better. They played a lot better. Come on, let's be frank. They played way better.
Or nowhere near as good.
Yeah, so Argentina were nowhere near as good. I have to say it. I mean, Argentina are good, but Spain they're in another league. It has to be said. They were by far the best team in the World Cup. So they played way better. They played much better than Argentina.
I'm sorry, Reza, I can't meet you for coffee tomorrow. I'm way too busy. So way, another use of way there, way too busy, which means far too busy. There's no way I can meet you. I'm modifying too busy. I'm way too busy to meet for coffee.
So way is definitely informal. It's used a lot. But we've got plenty of formal modifiers which mean more or less the same as significantly, which is probably the most common, significantly, but we've also got considerably, substantially, remarkably, dramatically, drastically, markedly, and appreciably. There are a few others, but that's enough for you to get practicing at the moment. Those are the most common adverbs to modify, which mean the same as significantly. For example, our new car is considerably more economical. It's significantly, it's substantially, it's dramatically more economical.
Remember, you can see all of this vocabulary in the show notes to this episode. Go to inglespodcast.com/635. You can go there, check the spelling, make some notes, and write down anything that you want to remember. Another example, petrol and gas prices, this is true actually, petrol and gas prices due to the war have been substantially higher this year.
The new Wimbledon champion played remarkably well under pressure. Remarkably.
When I read that example, I tried to remember who won Wimbledon this year. Do you know who won the men's and women's singles? Because it came in the middle of the World Cup, didn't it?
That's
so
right.
I didn't really pay attention.
The
But
World
I
Cup
did
gets all the
check.
press.
You'll be pleased to know. Jannik Sinner, who I've never heard of, won the men's.
Sinner, that's right, rings a bell.
Sinner.
As in pecador, bad one, the one who commits sin, unfortunately.
He's dramatically sinner, can't even say it. And the ladies champion this year, Linda Noskova, won the ladies singles.
Apologies to tennis fans that we had to look that up. We didn't know that.
Yeah, we got lost in the World Cup this year.
Well, a lot of people in different ways got lost in the World Cup, including the bosses of FIFA. But we'll talk about that
some other time. Some more examples. House prices have risen dramatically, you could say. We need to drastically alter our marketing strategy. The quality has improved markedly. I don't think I'd say that, markedly.
Maybe not, but people do.
People write it maybe more than say it.
Ah, right. Okay. I see what you mean. You'd write it rather than say it. Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I might write it, but probably not say it in conversation. Sure. The journey was appreciably shorter. Yeah, another example.
Yes, that's a really good use of appreciably, because if something is appreciably shorter, you appreciate it. So if a journey is shorter, you think, oh wow, that's nice. It wasn't so long. That was appreciably shorter. Yeah, I really could see that.
I think listeners will be pleased that this podcast might be appreciably shorter than it usually is.
It is, yeah. But just before we go, let's practice a bit. So we've written a couple of ideas, or I've written a couple of ideas, but we haven't practiced this. I'm just going to ask, and Craig's going to ask me for opinions, and we'll see if we can practice some of this vocabulary. So let's compare a few things. Craig, up to you. Talk about any aspect you like. Compare England and Ireland.
England and Ireland. Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, I may be wrong because I'm not really good at geography, but isn't England substantially larger in size?
I wouldn't say it is. If you're talking about geographical size, I wouldn't say substantially. It's not like Ireland and Brazil or something like that.
Or the population substantially larger?
Ah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but not geographically. Do you know the difference?
In size or population?
Population.
No. I know England's about 65 million, somewhere around there.
Something like that. And Ireland, if we include North and South, what would you say?
Or a rough guess, I'd say 15 million.
5.5 or 6.
Really?
Yeah, so there's a huge difference. 10 times bigger the population. So that's drastically higher.
Yeah, so Ireland has an appreciably smaller population.
We've got a hell of a lot more space in Ireland per person. Yeah.
Ireland is a great deal greener.
That's for sure. Than some parts of England. Particularly at the moment, because I don't know if you've seen in the news, we're talking about August 2026. Half of England has been declared in drought.
That's right.
50% of the country is in drought. England? We're not talking about Sudan. England, 50% in drought. Wow.
And there's a hose pipe ban. Everybody's buying hose pipes.
So yes. Ah, right. Yeah. So I see what you did there. So the possibility of fires, forest fires in England is drastically higher than it usually is. Usually you wouldn't expect there to be many forest fires in England, but you would right now in August 2026. It's a very exceptional time.
I thought of another comparison. The people in Ireland, in my opinion, are by far friendlier than the English. The English are nowhere near as friendly or as talkative.
Ooh, that's a very brave admission.
Do you not agree?
I do, but it's to hear it coming from an Englishman is impressive.
Well, no, having travelled in Ireland, I've found that the people are by far friendlier.
You know what? I like English people a lot in general, but I just find that the English compared to the Irish are slightly here, I'm not going to say a lot, but slightly more uptight would be the word. Uptight.
Yeah, stressed out.
Yes, a bit more...
Highly strung.
Highly strung, a bit more rigid, a bit more formal, actually. They like a bit more formality.
And the Irish are significantly more laid back.
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon for people, even in a fairly big city like Belfast, Dublin, someone who's a complete stranger to come up to you and go, ooh, oh God, it's a hot day, isn't it? Blah, blah, blah. Get into a chat as if they've known you all their life, with the tone of voice and everything. Mm-hmm. If you do that in London, they'd think you're crazy. A lot of people they just wouldn't speak to you.
That's true. That's true. Let's compare things I like.
Yeah.
Chocolate. Milk chocolate, dark chocolate, there's even white chocolate. How would you...
You give it away there by saying even. Your disdain.
Some people say...
By saying even, he gave it away like, well, I didn't even consider that.
It has been said that there's also white chocolate.
So I leave it in the hands of an expert. How would you compare the three?
Well, I think dark chocolate is a great deal healthier because it doesn't have as much sugar. What do you think?
That's a scientific fact. Mm-hmm. It's a fact, yeah. I also think it's substantially tastier.
I agree.
Although for some people that's a drawback, not a benefit, but I like the taste of cocoa or cacao. Some people don't. Some people prefer it watered down, so they prefer milk chocolate. But I think you and I are both dark boys. Yeah, we like our dark chocolate.
Yeah, we like our drugs pure, don't we?
Yeah.
Pure cocoa.
White chocolate is substantially sweeter, isn't it?
Drastically sweeter.
And it barely tastes of cocoa at all. I never buy white chocolate.
Yeah. What about tea, coffee and beer? I think coffee's way better in the morning.
I disagree.
Really?
For me, first thing in the morning, I prefer tea. Because tea is nowhere near as high in caffeine.
That's why I like coffee.
Ah, okay.
It wakes me up.
I like the fact that tea has some caffeine, but not as much as coffee. So I get a bit, but not the whoop, the big surge that you get with coffee. I don't like that first thing in the morning. I like to get my coffee surge later in the day, but not too late, like 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Mid-morning.
Mid-morning. I don't like that. Oof.
I think I read once that tea has 50% the caffeine that coffee has, but then usually if you drink tea, you'll be drinking it in a mug most of the time, so you're probably drinking twice as much tea as in a small Spanish cup of coffee.
True, but I think it's the fact that it's more diluted, that it enters your system in a different way because it's entering with more water. It's more watered down.
Right, makes sense.
I think. Craig, what about doctors and nurses? They're both healthcare professionals. How would you compare them?
How would I compare them? Well, the first thing that occurs to me is that doctors have way higher salaries than nurses.
Yeah.
Which nurses earn nowhere near as much as doctors do. Can you think of another comparison?
Well, thinking about their work, I would say that although that is true, in many ways the work of nurses is just as important as the work of doctors.
True.
Because if without the nurse looking after your stitches, attending to you when you start bleeding after an operation, you could die. So in many ways their work is just as important, although it's true that a doctor's knowledge of medicine is substantially more advanced than the nurses. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. And it's markedly more difficult to pass the exams as a doctor, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, finally, what about us? I mean, should we let our listeners describe us and practice some of these modifiers? What do you think?
Well, listeners, or for those few who are watching us on video, and remember, we have the perfect faces for audio,
not
for
video.
I think most people think...
And bodies.
And bodies. Everybody's thinking, well, Craig's shirt is way more interesting. And I would agree with that. It's way more interesting than mine.
And you'll notice that Reza is significantly younger and far better looking than Craig. So if you'd like to compare us and practice some of these modifiers, you can send us a voice message and do just that. You can send your voice messages by going to speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Links, as always, in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/635. How can people write, Reza?
If you prefer to write, you could write to craig@inglespodcast.com and both, if you like, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with free and paid resources, you could visit the Mansion Ingles website at mansioningles.com. And for paid products, you can browse the online store. You'll find that at store.mansioningles.net.
And if you'd like a full transcription of the audio of this podcast, you might consider joining our Patreon program. That's Patreon. And as a Patreon member, you'll receive the full transcription by email every week so that you can read every single word we say. And you'll also, as a bonus, get a monthly invitation to join Craig for an informal chat on Zoom to practice your speaking further. If you're interested, have a look at the link in the show notes. It's patreon.com/inglespodcast.
And we'd like to say thank you to all our lovely Patreon supporters, but we don't have time to name you all, but we will say hello and thank you to Alexandra Jurchak, who has joined us this month. Thanks, Alexandra.
Thanks, Alexandra. Craig, what are we talking about next week?
We're going to stay with grammar next week. We're going to talk about advanced English verb tenses, have a review. We've already spoken about the basic verb tenses. Next week we're going to dive deeper and look at the more complicated verb tenses in English. So join us for that. If you enjoyed this podcast, why not mention it to a friend or family member so that we can get more people listening. And until next time, thank you for keeping us company. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's cheerio from Craig.